Hey, welcome to this video. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to see that this world is going crazy. A lot of people are panicking. A lot of people are losing a lot of things, but that doesn't mean that it's over for you. What you do next is what matters the most. I found this video and I wanted to react to it. Let's go ahead, see what the video is about. Like, share, subscribe. Let me know in the comments where you're from, and let's get it. I want to show you how I made $2,200 while I was on this ATV in Mexico a few days ago. Tap the school link in the bio and I'll see you there. And by the way, I'm showing you 100% free. I want the opportunity to prove to you that I can help you before we even think or even talk about investment. I'll see you on the inside.
Before we get started, I want to come out and directly tell you that this video was 100% inspired by a video made on another channel called A Homestead Journey. And I want to make my own version of this video, even though it will be sort of based on the same principles that were discussed in her video. And I'll have the original video linked down below in case anybody wants to check it out. But I feel like pretty much everybody can relate to a video title and topic like this, because that's exactly what's happening. The collapse of everyday life in America as we know it has begun. And I think it has already begun a couple of years ago when things started getting really expensive. Because right now, there is no doubt about it that the American economy is struggling. And you don't have to look at charts or the government reports to know that. All you got to do is look at your wallet and your most recent bank statement and you'll know it. And I want to go over some real life examples of things that are happening to people out there that is making it impossible to live life in a normal way anymore. Because people aren't just worried about inflation anymore. They're worried about keeping the lights on. They're worried about paying the rent. They're worried about putting the food on the table. And if you saw my video from yesterday, now you got to be worried about keeping the water flowing through the taps in your house, because that's getting too expensive. So let's go over what are some of the big picture and high level problems that are causing all of this to begin with. Well, inflation is probably public enemy number one that continues to be a problem and has been going up according to the most recent inflation reports. Taxes, they also keep rising. Interest rates remain elevated, but they might be coming down soon, which we'll talk about in a second. The national debt keeps on climbing with probably no end in sight. And on top of all of that, wages are stagnating, and a lot of people fear that AI is about to undercut pay even more by automating millions of American jobs.
Now look, we all understand what's happening with AI. We all understand what's happening with this world, but you don't have to live in it and accept everything that's happening. Now, I know a lot of you feel that you don't have any power or you don't have any say-so or anything like that. The way I'm combating what's happening in this world is by understanding that I have high income skills. If you're worried about your wages, then learn how to make more money. Now, I know that sounds foreign to someone that only knows how to work a job. You see, that's the only way that we're supposed to be. That's as far as our understanding is supposed to go, right? We're supposed to feel like the only thing we can do is to work 70 hours at one job, and if we need more money, to go work another 70 hours at another job. And that is not true. There are a lot of ways to make money. I specifically make money online. But the most important thing is you learning the high income skills so you're not stuck in this world the way it is, living the way it's designed for us to live. It's designed for us to be in poverty. It's designed for us not to see a way. It's designed for us to be frustrated and failing. That's how the world is designed. But you don't have to fall for this. You don't have to accept this. I'm not accepting this. I'm not accepting this. So I don't go around and focus on what's happening in the world. I don't focus on what I see. I focus on what I'm doing every day to change or go against how everybody feels that the world is right now. And you can do the same thing.
So the message that all of this sends to the average working American is that unless you are already wealthy right now, then the system is completely rigged against you. And I would have to agree, guys. Like,
that is not true. That is not true. It is true to a point. You know, it is true to a point. But, you know, you got to understand that if you're accepting that, you're giving up all of your power and all of the control that you have to be able to live the life that you want to live. You don't have to accept the way this world is. But as you can see, most people do. And once you accept it, it doesn't matter what you do because you've already accepted that better is not possible.
Getting wealthy from scratch today is easier than it's ever been, but also harder than it's ever been. And what I mean by that is there are more opportunities than ever that can make you wealthy, but the definition of wealthy also, and the bar of what wealthy actually is, has been raised so high that it almost seems unattainable. I've told this story a bunch of times on the channel, but when I was a kid, if you had $1 million, you were set. You could retire and sail off into the sunset and never have to work again. And for some people, that would still be the case even today in 2025. But we all know that the $1 million today doesn't go anywhere near as far as it did 30 years ago. And for anybody who is wondering, I am walking along the Shoreline Trail, at least a small section of it here, in China Camp State Park. And so this past week, the Fed had its annual meeting at Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and Jerome Powell gave his speech, and he hinted at the Fed possibly lowering interest rates at their next meeting in September. And of course, if they do this, get ready for inflation to get a whole lot worse, guys, because it has been on the rise for the past few readings, and having interest rate cuts right now at a time when inflation is still going up, it's basically a guarantee it's going to rise. I know some of the real smart economists out there, including my friend Adam that I had on the show the other day, he even mentioned that he believes the inflation reading's going to go down due to the cost of housing coming down now. But I don't think that's going to be enough to sway it, because there are so many other things that are going up, especially at very high rates right now, that it's going to outweigh any small reduction in the cost of housing. That's my thoughts. So one thing that's causing this collapse of American life is the utility bills are completely out of control, guys. In Missouri, one woman said that her electric bill came in at $830 this month, and that was lower than last month's bill of $1,130, okay? And for perspective, that's more than her mortgage payment. That's probably more than a lot of people's mortgage payment. Another family reported having a $560 electric bill in June and a $650 bill in July, and they're going to be forking out over $2,000 in just electric bills in the span of just 3 months. A lot of people have been calling their utility companies thinking that there must be some kind of mistake because my bill has never been this high before. And then they're saying, no, that's the right amount. You're being charged the right amount. This is correct. Just like what's happening with people with the water bills. Like, what? Since when did the electric bill become a mortgage payment or more than your car payment, guys? When did the water bill become so unaffordable that you might not be able to run the water in your house? And we're talking regular size houses here have $700 per month water bills, okay? We're not talking mansions. These are people with modest houses, and who can afford that? People who live in a modest house usually live in a modest house for a reason, because that's what they can afford. And getting a $700 utility bill of any kind is probably not feasible. I mean, it would already be expensive if all of your utility bills combined were $700 a month, let alone just one of them. And it's all kinds of bills, guys. It's electric, it's water, it's gas, the sewer, the trash pickup, recycling, you name it. And so naturally, a lot of people are starting to fall behind on these bills because they're getting too far out of control. Many people are only paying the absolute essentials like the water, the electric, and the gas, and falling behind on the rest. That's probably why you see delinquencies on all forms of debt right now skyrocketing. We got delinquencies on auto loans, on mortgages, on credit card payments, and student loans, all on the rise right now. So the bills that people are skipping are the medical bills. They're skipping the mortgage payment or the rent payment, or they're skipping the credit card payment, because those are things that you can skip right now and not have immediate consequences. You know, it takes months in some cases to get evicted. It takes sometimes over a year to get foreclosed on if you own a house. Medical bills, nothing's going to happen to you for a long time until that goes to collections, and maybe they start garnishing your wages a few years later down the road. Same thing with credit cards. In fact, a lot of people have been admitting lately that they've been skipping all kinds of bills lately, and surprisingly, the creditors have been quiet and haven't been hounding people too heavily right now.
Now that is crazy. That is crazy. Look, I mean, I have to be honest. You know, this situation is crazy to see. You know, it's crazy to see, but it's even more crazier to see how people are responding to this situation. You know, like not paying your bills because you don't have money. I understand. You know, I understand from that perspective of not making enough money. I understand. I'm not going to sit here and act like I don't understand that. But I don't understand being in that place and not doing anything about it. You know, constantly pushing yourself further and further and further, making it harder and harder and harder to be able to dig your way out of a situation like this. You know, like, I mean, I'm paying my bills every month. Like me, we're paying our bills every month. I mean, yes, our bills are going up, but we're making more money. You know, when things go wrong like this, it's time to make more money. What are people waiting on? You got to stop telling yourself that you can't afford to make more money. No, you can't afford to live in this life and not pay your bills. You can't. That's what you can't afford to make one, to have one income. You can't afford to not make more money. That's what you can't afford anymore.
Now, probably because they know that people don't have the ability to pay them. Take a look at this chart right here that shows you what's going on with the household bill situation. Only 55% of household bills are being paid on time, 30% are being paid late, and 15% just aren't getting paid altogether right now. So people are literally paying half of their bills on time, or half of them at all. In the original video that I referenced at the beginning of my video, there's a clip of a handyman talking about what's going on with his business right now. He says that he normally gets steady side jobs and he hasn't had a single job in 14 days, which means 2 weeks of no work, and he has good reviews, lots of experience. And the reason for this, people are trying to do everything themselves right now rather than hire somebody for help, because it's not cheap to hire somebody. And if you got more time than money, well, then it makes more sense to put the effort in on your own. You have home inspection companies that are becoming desperate for work because, listen, no one's buying a house, right? The home sale numbers are as low as they've been in the past 30 to 40 years. And so home inspection companies are coming out of the woodwork and cold calling their old clients and begging them for work, you know, asking them for referrals, saying, hey, if you have anybody, please think about us because we need the business right now. That even reminds me of a comment I saw the other day from one of my viewers. I apologize, I don't remember who it was from, but it was something along the lines of, you know, I've been in the mortgage industry in Las Vegas for the past 17 years, and the amount of loans I'm doing right now is only a small fraction of what I was doing just a few years ago. And everybody keeps saying that the economy is resilient. That's what you keep hearing Jerome Powell and the Trump administration say, is that things are great, but somehow we need to cut interest rates because things are so great. And also, if things were so great, then why do Americans believe that we've been in a recession for years now? Oh, that's right, because we actually have been. It's just that the official data isn't reflecting it. I don't agree with the mainstream narrative that it's not a recession until we're told that it is due to the data, guys. I am just not on board with that narrative, and I never will be. Because after all the research I've done on this channel, it has become apparent to me that the data doesn't really matter anymore. The only thing that really matters is what the average person is going through right now. Then, of course, the general cost of living is rising everywhere across the board, not proportionally, but by different amounts and for different reasons. Like, for example, Landlords continue to raise the rent for people even though they can't afford it, although a lot of people have been seeing rent decreases, which is a good thing. Car insurance is one of those things that is definitely going up for basically everybody right now. You couldn't believe the shock when I saw that my most recent car insurance payment actually went down by like $20 or $30 for the 6-month premium. I know it's a small decrease, but I'll take anything at this point. Medical insurance is going to be the big one that's going to hit everybody this year, guys. I did a video about this the other day talking about just how much medical insurance premiums are projected to rise. A lot of people are already feeling them right now. They're already at record highs. We'll get ready for it to go up another 30 to 40% in the next year because that is coming. That's a guarantee at this point. You got people that thought that they were retired and that they had the good life and everything was all set up who are now lying awake in bed at nighttime wondering how they're going to afford the rent or how they're going to make the bills this month because the bills have gone up far beyond what they thought they were going to be in retirement. I mean, just look at this chart right here that shows you the rising cost of all of these utilities and all these expenses, including the rent, and just how much it has skyrocketed since 2020. It was on a gradual increase before then, but gradual is the word. There's no more gradual increase to this in case you can't see the right half of the chart. The increases are now exponential. And this has all led to a situation where people cannot save money anymore. Even when people try to do their best and they try to set aside a chunk of their income each month, not touch it, within just a couple of days of saving it, they find out, well, there's an unexpected expense that came up. Now I need to dip into that savings that I thought I was going to put away for the future. And it just makes you wonder, how is anybody saving money right now? More and more people now are starting to get on board with this idea that we are in a major recession.
In my opinion, saving money is not, I understand everything that he's saying. I understand, but in my opinion, saving money will, see, you don't want to save money. You want to invest money. You want to invest money into either assets that make you more money or into high income skills. And I'm going to keep saying the same thing, because these are things that, this is the way that you can change your economy. I know someone right now that saved money all their life, and you know what? They're never able to keep it. Because while they're saving, they're just letting their money sit in the bank. And just like he just said, when they need something unexpected happens, they go to their savings. And so you deplete that over and over and over again, and it's going to continue to happen over and over. Look, think about it. If you're already not making enough money at your job and you're trying to save the little bit of money that you're already not making, the only thing it can do is to continue to come around full circle. You're going to go to work. You're going to save a little bit. You're going to go back, and now something unexpected happens. You're going to have to deplete it. And then you're going to do it again. And then you're going to do it again. And then you're going to do it again. How many times do people have to go through that cycle before they realize, okay, I have to do something different? Because just saving money, that's going to keep you in the same situation.
Maybe even a depression, and that a big economic crash is right around the corner. Because after all, how can this be sustained? But when you really kind of look around and see the metrics that, the Fed and the government and Wall Street use as measurements of our economy, all of those things still look relatively good, especially the stock market hitting all-time highs again, And so many of these guys are just under the impression that if the stock market's doing well, then everything must be great, because there's no way in hell that the stock market would be hitting all-time highs if things weren't great. That is the furthest thing from the truth. Like I have showed you guys on this channel, every time companies announce layoffs, especially big ones, guess what happens to their stock price? It goes up, because now they're going to be cutting costs, they're going to be increasing efficiency, and ultimately that leads to larger profits for these companies, which means a higher share price for them. It's sad to say it, but we now live in a world where bad news is good news for the stock market. People losing jobs and people becoming unemployed or homeless is good news for the stock market. because those are all people that don't need to be paid anymore. But one thing that these big Wall Street companies are missing, especially the AI guys, is those are also all people who can no longer afford to buy your product or service. And eventually, if this happens to enough people, there's going to be nobody left to buy their products or services. And that's when the day of reckoning is going to come. But that could be a while, especially with how much people rely on debt to live their everyday lives these days. And that's another reason why there's been a major collapse in American life as we know it. Because 50 years ago, nobody needed to live off of debt in order to survive. Maybe you had a mortgage 50 years ago that was paid off in 10 or 15 years, and that's it. Now, people need to finance their Grubhub order. So it's normal for people to expect a crash right now because it seems like that's the only clear way things are headed. You know, we got the inflated stock prices, we got AI taking people's jobs, we got massive stock buybacks that have been happening for decades, and the prices of the market are no longer rooted in fundamentals. They're rooted in buybacks and layoffs and other things that prop up the market. And when the American consumer really is finally tapped out, that's when everything is going to come to a screeching halt, when sales on everything completely collapses. Whether it's by choice because people are pulling back because they don't want to dig themselves into a bigger hole, or they've already dug the biggest hole that they can get themselves into, but their credit has run dry. And everything we just talked about, you know, people not able to afford the utilities, not being able to pay the rent, not being able to save money, and purposefully missing different sorts of obligation payments. This is a collective warning sign from Americans telling you that the current way things are going is completely unsustainable. And that's pretty much the message I've been preaching on this channel for the last few years, really ever since the beginning of 2022, when inflation started becoming a real problem and the housing market started to show some real bubble behavior. That's when all this came on my radar. Personally, the way that I am handling this sort of thing is I'm not much of a prepper, but I am a saver. You know, I do save a lot of my money, and I also make sure to own real money, which is gold and silver, and I make sure to live well below my means, so that way, if something does happen, that I can still afford my life. And that's always the same kind of message I continue to promote here on the channel, because some people lose their way and they forget what they need to do in order to become successful financially. And that's where my channel kind of comes in to constantly remind you of all the hidden dangers out there when it comes to overspending and basically living beyond your means, when it comes to waiting to buy a house at the right time once you can truly afford it. These are all big things I like people to learn from my videos. So let me know what you learned from today's video down in the comments.
So, I mean, you know, like, I honestly feel that, you know, America has a choice. You know, America can accept what's going on and sit back and hope something changes, or, you know, us people of America can get in charge or get in front of what's happening and stop it from happening. I refuse to sit back and not pay my bills. I refuse to sit back and accept anything that, any prices, any inflation. I refuse. I refuse to make videos complaining about it. I refuse to make videos on social media complaining about it. I'm going to make sure that I continue to stand in front of it and do what I have to do to make sure it does not affect me and my family. Now, regardless, no matter how much money you're making, of course, it's still going to affect my family the way it's going to affect my family. And honestly, I really, really, really feel sorry for the younger generation, you know, the people that are now 13, 14, you know, because it's no telling what things are going to be like for them. You know, if it stays the same, you know, it's going to be hard. But you have the power, you are worthy, and you have everything that you need in order to change this situation. Let me know how you feel in the comments, and I'll see you on the next video. Peace.